traditionally neglected, overlooked by companies. Cyber threats spread in a very global and varying level in the world, with several modes and tactics for attacks. CISOs and IT managers traditionally don't have the necessary background for comprehending this multi-layer level of threats and depth of changes, given also all the interdependencies that are happening in the tech and cyber world. We are living in a very particular moment since the war in Ukraine. We are pretty much understanding from states, from companies, and for individuals as well, in a momentum in which the geopolitical or geoeconomics factor is having a huge importance when we try to consider these cyber-related threats and opportunities.
Welcome to talk.cyberscni.fr.
Bienvenue.
Welcome to the 19th edition of Talk Cyber CNI, our monthly cybersecurity speaker series that has as a goal to discuss with you interesting cybersecurity topics. Today we have Julien Nocetti, who is the head of the Chair Cyber Risk Governance at the Rennes Business School, and he'll be talking about cyber-related threats and geopolitics, upgrading the level playing expertise. But before we come to Julien, as always, the introduction to the Slido. So on the left, you see the Slido code. So it's, as it's the 19th edition, today we have cybercni/19. So when you go to Slido/cybercni/19, you have the possibility to see the second screen, to give comments and to upvote questions and so on. And so please go ahead and use this opportunity because we're looking forward to your questions, and you can also see what the other people are asking. I will from time to time show also the Slido so that you see what is currently happening on the second screen. Okay. So, and Alex is also with us today to moderate the Q&A at the end. So also welcome to Alex. Then another thing that might be interesting to you, as you know, we are often, or from time to time, we are running our Future IoT PhD school, and this is a full week PhD school. This year, the topic will be IoT meets automation, and the school will be happening in Berlin from the 29th of August until the 2nd of September. We're currently still working on the program, but you see the website here. So it's on schoolfutureiot.org. In the background, you also see the, just stop the browser so that you see the other trailer that is currently running in the background. Yeah, so there we'll have a full week of program with the hackathon and multiple companies participating. We will see the city and so on. The location is perfectly located. It's in the city center of Berlin, just a few hundred meters from the Brandenburg Gate. On the website, I'll just show the website again. So what you see here is the last edition so that you get an idea of what was happening there. Yeah, on the website of the 5th edition, you already find the registration. Do not hesitate to register yourself. We have the option of participating in person on site. If we get the grants that we applied for, the hotel will be included in the registration fee, so it will be super cheap. We have remote experience via Zoom, where you can join in and also participate for both. We have 40 places each, first come, first served. And then, of course, we also have the stream. And if you register on the website for the stream, you are sure that you don't miss the infos about the event, because we'll keep you updated what is happening there. Okay, that's that. I'll just switch back to the Slido because it's a more relevant one at the moment. Yeah, that's it. Today, as we've seen already in the introduction, cyber-related threats and geopolitics, upgrading the level playing expertise. And I'm a lot looking forward to Julien's presentation and to the discussion afterwards, because it's a super up-to-date topic that is super interesting and that is related also to the last edition. If you joined in, you noticed that we could not run the last edition because Moritz Flüssler, he was unluckily getting ill. We'll postpone it either in the pre-last week of June or in the middle of July. I'll keep you updated on the website. So Moritz is already in contact with me. He's better, which is very good. And yeah, so some words about Julien. So Dr. Julien Nocetti is head of the Chair Cyber Risk Governance at Rennes School of Business and an associate fellow at French premier think tank IFRI, French Institute for International Relations. He also teaches cyberspace and international politics at Saint-Cyr Military Academy and is a research member of the Center Geopolitics of the Data Sphere in the University of Paris 8. Julien is a member of SIGREF's Strategic Orientation Council. He conducts research on global cyber-related issues, including the geopolitics of cyberspace and artificial intelligence, as well as geoeconomics of emerging technologies. He's also a specialist in Russia's foreign and cyber policies. And reading through it, I'm even more impressed and looking forward to your
Okay, thank you so much, Mark-Oliver. I don't want to have any pressure when you're reading this short biography, but actually, just a couple of words about myself, because I first entered all these cyber-related topics from my Russia expertise. So 10 or 15 years later, we understand that that is, I mean, these both caps, both expertise blend together, and it's quite useful actually to have this Russia background actually when dealing with cybersecurity, as you might all easily guess. So just finishing about myself. So I think, as you said, Mark-Oliver, the topic today is really really topical in itself, of course, because the ongoing war in Ukraine has given much, well, I would say, hope for a sort of, open cyber conflict. And you've all seen and watched all these narratives about, especially in the US case. I would stress, perhaps, all this cybergeddon, cyber Pearl Harbor, cyber Fukushima, and whatever kind of metaphor you want to express, this sort of systemic impact the cyber factor would have on international politics and business as well. So, I mean, I'm not saying here that at 100% you have a sort of import, well, I should precise, export of the US strategic and business debate about cybersecurity to Europe and especially since the outburst of the war in Ukraine in February, late February, all those fears of cyber have proven wrong, so to speak. So it's something very interesting, because this kind of narratives actually have an impact on our perceptions, whether we are academics, but more importantly here in the case of that presentations on how to run businesses and how to assess the risk and threats in the cyber world. So it's something quite important, because in my initial sphere and so on, the perceptions of the leaders, I mean, be they governments or companies, are really important. And here, I think for the past, I'd say, for the past 3-4 years, perceptions of the world have entered again enter the game in all this cyber related stuff. And it's something really important because when we are dealing, we know on all these strategic issues such as attribution, for example, perceptions do matter a lot, as you is easily guess once again here. So, well, my purpose today is not to stress too much about Ukraine, although it's really interesting. But for those of you who will be coming to the FIC in early June in Lille, I will be giving a masterclass about the cyber component of the war in Ukraine. Well, but it's perhaps much more focused. Well, at least in the first step of the conflict in Ukraine, perhaps more focused on the military operational aspect, and perhaps less on, I would say, more traditional cybersecurity related matters. Well, anyway, that's my brackets being closed. Today, the purpose of these geopolitical factors as a whole, and the activities actually of companies, and I would perhaps today focus more on larger companies, so those who have a board, for example. But in itself, I mean, this can be applied to other kind of private actors and so on. So the purpose, first of all, is perhaps to give you a sort of I would say an overview of the threats coming from a geopolitical expertise, and then in a second time, how this kind of expertise assessment can be better integrated to the operation of companies and leaders in the private sector. So here, well, I had initially had a PowerPoint, but for technical reasons, I'm not operating it. So I perhaps say when we have to move to other slides. Yeah.
Regarding this, just share the slides once again with Alex, because the sharing over the worked, but it was cancelled before we could download the entire presentation. So maybe just try again to
Okay, all
share
right.
it, and then Alex.
Okay, this is done right now.
That's the reason why you don't see it.
Okay.
Yeah, do it now. Perfect. Because yeah, we had some technical trouble at the beginning with the slides, and therefore sorry that you don't see them yet. And yeah, either you wait for a minute if you want, or if you want to continue.
I might continue
without it,
because I
also
mean
totally fine with
this
it.
slide are just a sort of
Perfect.
backup to the words I'm just telling, so it's not so strategic in itself. So why the matter is important? I think it's important because first of all, well, just starting from perhaps broader assessments, when we are mentioning all that cyber factor as a world, as a broad domain, you you sometimes may heard parallels being made with the nuclear parameter, the nuclear domain. It's something that international relations specialists have heard for quite a long time already. It's still present in the US debate still today, but there is a major difference between the cyber and the nuclear domain. Is that one factor which is very simple, that the nuclear domain, the cyber factor irrigates all the activities. I mean, all socio-economic activities, unlike the nuclear factor, of course, which is really restricted to particular kind of activities, and does not have the same consequences, of course, as we all know. So this is once again something which is tied to perceptions, but is once again really important. Another factor which is still useful to remind is that all what we call about cyber conflict and cyber warfare and so on all this has given birth to a sort of blurring of the lines between what we traditionally understood as resorting to the civilian domain and the military domain. So there is a sort of abolishing of the distinctions between the civilian and military aspect. Also, and it's something we have seen for the past few years, and which is quite clear today with the conflict in Ukraine, that how to make the difference between wartime and peacetime around cyber. It's really difficult. It's really difficult. You don't have any launch of hostilities, of open hostilities in the cyber domain. You don't have a country. Well, let's say. I don't know, China, Russia, or France, who will say, yeah, of course, yeah, let's start a cyber war against you, against my main adversary. No, absolutely not. Well, this is something which is quite noticeable, of course, past and okay. So I think we can go to slide 4. So where?
Okay, but let me first include the slides. Give me 1 second. Okay, perfect. Oh yeah, really nice. So good, good that we made it, because it would have been a pity not to show them. I just include the slides. 1 second. Yeah, but maybe let's quickly walk through the slides from the one, so just that the people in the stream also see it. Oh, probably makes sense. Okay. I'm also not sure what is happening with my computer, because it's and at the same time.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Michael Oliver. So I was first of all describing the overall and global landscape connected to cyber conflict and to cybersecurity. Just to give you a few insights about how the expertise in geopolitics on world affairs, is perceiving this kind of stakes and challenges. And moving to that, it's quite clear for all of us that the I would say the reach, the power, the flexibility of what we call hackers is something which has been quite underestimated, that has been assessed not in sufficiently precise ways. I think, and especially by the people, by the academics, by the experts in the private sector, who tend to focus perhaps more or much more on the most visible cyber attacks. I mean, on the attacks that have the most reach in the global media, I would say. So, and this is also connected to what I stressed a few minutes ago about this prospect for open cyber warfare and a sort of catastrophic and even eschatologic scenario because of the cyber factor, because of this cyber attacks. So here, what is interesting, and you see these slides illustrating the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, not to talk about North Korea in itself, but just to illustrate my words about the use. The quite extensive use, I would stress, of proxies or of intermediaries, actually by the North Korean regime to have an impact on a given country, but more on a given sector, industrial sector in the world. And North Korean hackers have been perhaps more, I would say, effective in the way, not because they hacked 8 years ago and they actually had an effect on the dissemination of a movie which was mocking actually Kim Jong-un, but because North Korean hacker have been much more skillful to steal money from central banks, for example, and it's something which is quite worrying, because that tells a lot about the actual flows of cyber protections for many banks and including central banks in many countries in the world. Well, anyway, here's my point was really to stress a novel parameter once again, which is really the significance today of hackers. I mean, be they acting individually or in coalition, I would say, meaning that for many of them, they tend to mutualize their own capacities and ambitions. Also meaning that you might find them in cybercrime, and I will get back to that later on. Or working sometimes for governments, or at least part-time for governments, which is not the same thing. And I was just mentioning North Korea a few seconds ago. Typically, here you have a group, which is a hacking group, which is called Lazarus, and Lazarus has been quite famous for undertaking cyber attacks for the benefits of the North Korean regime, but sometimes the Lazarus Group has also initiated cyber attacks for other countries or other companies. So I would say here that I would say the dependencies of these hacking groups, they tend to vary a lot and to evolve, according to the global context, and also depending from their own and sometimes criminal actors. So that is something really really complicated actually to grasp. And there is a case study which is quite interesting today. You've probably all heard about a group which is called Conti, which has, by the way, since the outburst of the its allegiance to it is working best of a given country, and that's quite revealing also here. Well, anyway, so just to get back to Conti, what is interesting is that, of course, they have been under the spotlight for the past few months. They have known a sort of unprecedented growth of the activities and profits also, and that allegedly led to sort of a growth crisis, meaning that this major growth led to internal tensions and disputes between the main figures of that company. And the consequence of that is that you have several experts, several hackers from Conti who tried and to effectively withdraw from Conti, and that did disseminate their own knowledge, their own expertise. I mean here, and it's quite important, as I think, to me, that's the sort of internal tensions within a major cybercriminal group had for consequence to spread some of the most skilled human resource within the broader cybercriminal ecosystem, and it's something which is of course quite well comprehended by the law enforcement agencies in the world. And of course, it's something that we should all keep in mind. But I think it's not a good news because, well, of course, we had Conti, that group which undertook criminal activities, but which was quite well identified with the major hackers working for Conti. But no, the sole fact that the major experts working for it have withdrawn and were working either individually or for other criminal groups being spread all over the world, it's something which is really really hard to understand and to tie to other parts of the cyber ecosystem. Well, that's something quite self, I understand. But once again, here for companies, it's something which is not which should not be disconnected actually to the overall assessment and predictions of the IT managers and CEOs and etc. Because one day or another they will be facing the activities of such experts or hackers in a way. So here also the link, the intertwining between geopolitics and cybersecurity is the following: that we should we should really well understand the lessons of from prior geopolitical events. And I have three or four bullet points, 3 or 4 examples to stress here. The slide, but they are quite I telling us chief targeted. It's something that's quite clear today. Also, cybersecurity this cyber component can be, like it's really significant because we see that even in the tensions between China and India, between the US and China, for example, and today Russia and Ukraine, this is a parameter which is gaining much more significance and substance actually in the way it expresses new leverages and so on. And my third lesson, I would say, it's the fact that attackers they often gain a foothold by stealing credentials like account names, like passwords, and then they move unimpeded between systems. For example, lateral access and so on and so on. Well, that's perhaps more tied to a technical aspect, but which I think is really important to remind once again here. And fourth and last lesson, I would say, is They range from activists to cyber criminals to nefarious insiders to saboteurs to nation states. Of course, we all know that. I think also really important because when I was mentioning activists, today in the ongoing war in Ukraine, we have seen the birth of the Ukrainian IT army, meaning that of the wheels, of the good wheels to prevent the Russians from cyber attacking Ukraine and other Western countries. The constitution of a voluntary partisan, hacking group would help to defend and to raise the cyber defenses of Ukraine. So I think it's quite nuanced because it's I mean, some people the Ukrainian so and they could easily perpetrate damages, technical damages to Ukraine. I mean, this is a real in two slides. I'd say quite simply. So the actors vary a lot, and including for some of them, which we thought we know them well. I'm thinking perhaps here about the anonymous, the once again here sort of activist group. This is a group which has a decade ago, 2010, 2000, and today, the really evolved. So the threat actors vary, but also their motives, their objectives, which can be very different. That range from criminal, as stressed previously, to economic espionage, and here we all associate quite quickly China to it. Perhaps too easily, by the way, because China is not the only actor which is undertaking economic espionage through cyber attacks, and it's also about military espionage. So it's my previous reference to the war in Ukraine. So about some cyber attacks which have caused major damages. For example, in the US, 1 year and a half ago or 2 years ago, if you think about Colonel the line in the East Coast in the US, or about the SolarWinds attacks in the US, what was interesting in that that it was about a quite long-term intrusion from Russia in the IT systems. And some lights, some interesting, insight about the sometimes the much longer term perspective of many malicious actors in that cyber world. And once again, when not only but a longer run where EV because it's much think about I I think about that. Of these motives and actions, for example, crime, tend to for tend to place at the lower spectrum of the conflict. Um, and it's no so lower spectrum politics today, with billions of dollars of potential damages, and you have in some cases a sort of intertwining between uh, and I don't know how many time left do I have to to coherent monitoring capacity on geopolitical events is necessary, but not sufficient, of course. So, in such world, in such environment, I would say you have three. Well, I think three factors which are influencing such a policy. I'd say, for example, it is a way your own company is might be influenced from the geopolitical risk perspective, including the cyber risk. So, to what extent the companies is significant for its own native country, to what events which are tied to the image of the country might be exploited by adversaries, by attackers, in some way that might be also a part of the equation, I would say. The second factor would be, I think, the trends of the threats, and here what would be interesting and quite consistent in a way. It's a way the company should how to say, assess and exploit the intelligence, well, the data from the state institutions which are available freely. For example, in France, we have sometimes reports by the ANSI or the government in a way, and also the private sector sources. And once again, just to bring a parallel with the current events around Ukraine, what's interesting is that we have seen a sort of proliferation of reports by assessment reports and threat intelligence and so on. I'd say usual suspects, so the major infosec companies, so which is quite natural in a way, but also from other and sometimes significant players in this field. So I'm thinking here about Microsoft. It was once again here another kind of brackets, but one which is telling, because Microsoft has really sought to enter this global cybersecurity landscape, and it's something which is really really striking, because be it on the cyber attacks and on the information related threats, manipulation, disinformation, and so on. Microsoft has really sought over the past few years to tackle this kind of threats, or at least to be part of that industry and game, including at the more at the wiser diplomatic level, where Microsoft has been omnipresent to undertake some norm making and agenda setting activity. One example here, you've probably heard a few years ago about the Paris call for trust and security in cyberspace. It was an initiative starting from the Elysee in 2018, in November 2018, and Microsoft at the time had a major role, major influence in drafting the text, and it's something that is, yes, really to be part of that activity. And just coming to today, over the past 3 months, now, since the outburst of the conflict in Ukraine, Microsoft has released several kind of assessment reports about the nature of the cyber threats on some hacking groups as well, and it's a way to portray itself as part of the solution and not of the problem. So, well, beyond beyond philanthropy, I would say quite quickly, there is a stake for I mean, public diplomacy from such private players. Well, back to my words about the factors which are influencing, the better taking into considerations of that geopolitical risk, cyber risk for companies. The uh, third one would be analyzing the impact, and analyzing impacts, meaning that it should be done it should be done at 360 degrees. Well, it's be they impacts of non-compliance, or impacts on individuals, by the way, or on the technologies, IT technologies, or on IT processes. So it's here, more specifically, the favored domain for information security experts, and network experts. But it should be, I think, broadened to include, actually, all the major parts of the stakes for companies. Well, anyway, the second aspect, which I have mentioned quickly when I stressed a few questions a few minutes ago, meaning that the constraints, the or which is really really significant today for companies, including, and perhaps more importantly, in the cyber world and ecosystem, meaning that we are in times where states or supranational entities, such as the European Union, are really seeking to be really active and even proactive in that field, in that technology related field, and just to say very quick words about the European Union. When you take initiatives which have been discussed and sometimes voted over the past 3 weeks. For example, well, you had the DSA, the DMA, all the debates about the digital identity, the better structure, better framed, structure of the ENISA. You've had also, on a diplomatic level, in Brussels, the publishing of the cyber posture, cyber stance of the EU, meaning that it is part of the deterrence and all that diplomatic game in cybersecurity. So just on that EU level, the news. The news are really really important, really dense, and it should be initiatives like the DSA, the EMA, and so on, clearly impact the operations of companies. So they must comply to these laws and regulations, and often these norms. New norms, the EU, the European Union is taking and votes. They tend to influence extra European players, even in the US and China, for example. Well, meaning that it goes far beyond the nature of the political regime. Well, no matter here. So here, once again, when you are IT managers, but CISOs and so on, and including in the boards, you have to, not to anticipate necessarily, but at least to be to be well equipped, to really to understand well the all the implications for such proliferations of regulations. And in the cyber field, it's really key to understand. That aspect, meaning that there is also a parallel which has to be made, which a feature which I've already mentioned a few minutes before. When you are thinking about the importance today of sanctions, and more precisely extraterritorial sanctions coming from the US in particular. Companies today, have for some of them, but all the biggest ones, they all have set up a major compliance departments, meaning that they are taking the hairs and really being nervous sometimes when it comes to being sure of the compliance to the rules and to the US laws and so on. So that goes also into the cyber world, and that is really a new feature, I think, of that world. And I'll finish perhaps about the sort of, I would say, toolbox. Well, that's perhaps a word which is said quite quickly, but the geopolitical toolbox, the CISOs and other experts in that field should set up to really undertake clearly their role and missions. So here there is a quite obvious parameter, which is about education and training. That's something which does not come at all as a surprise, and being open, open-minded and curious about the larger the world, all the cultural aspect is in their own background, and that's here where companies should perhaps integrate this more, I would say, general culture about cybersecurity, which should be a two-step or three-step training into the life, into the career of these people, of these experts, meaning that we can't, in these positions, we can't be so efficient if we are not experiencing and listening to and thinking about the expertise of people who are competent, skilled about the evolution of the regulations of geopolitics and whatever. So there is a stake here, I think, a major stake for really being open to new training and new education about that, and that might also give birth to new kind of professional networks. Meaning that perhaps should be created. I don't know, some sort of transdisciplinary networks between CISOs and other kind of experts, which would not be solely composed of technical experts or engineers, but also from perhaps more social science background experts, who would bring their own expertise about the nature and evolution of the threats, about all the actors which I have mentioned so far in my talk, and about the potential impact of the regional or global balance of power, because this has clearly an impact on these cyber tensions we are experiencing right now. and that's here where this sort of professional network, this sort of professional network and associations in some way should be perhaps reinforced, because that I think updating of the knowledge and sharing the knowledge of the experts and people within companies, and that also is about being able and in capacity to monitoring on a daily basis, or at least at least on a weekly basis, all what is happening in this broader actor-based and the nature of the threat-based assessment. And here, not to say that we should put apart the techniques and the technology, not at all, but really to have a sort of hybrid view and assessment of this complex, as I said, cyber related risks and threats. Well, that would be a sort of quick toolbox, I think, which would be I think useful to mobilize for such experts. Well, if you agree, I would perhaps stop here before discussing the issue, because I could talk in length about so I would to answer.
Thank you very, very much. Big applause from side, at least representative. Who's sorry to all people on this meeting, because we had some technical difficulties to help them. Great talk. I loved it. Thank you very much. Maybe let me just question, because I had before. Its level of cyber warfare, so offense, the based information between countries. Is there a reason for it? So, this is the question. So back in days, it seemed like advanced in strategies.
Interesting question, because just the Ukrainian war, what is quite clear that cyber warfare did not come, at least not in a major way, and with major detrimental consequences for including Ukraine. I think this is tied to several kind of reasons. Why? Because first of all the the halo of this Russian cyber superpower was perhaps not tied to the actual real Russian capacity, and its power over this is equally important as the actual capacities you have. the stock of missiles and nuclear weapons you have in your garage. Well, but the perception, the status, the ranking, international ranking does matter a lot. And here, sort of omnipotent superpower cyber, that's actually played in favor of Russia itself. Well, so here, well, I'm not meaning here that we should dismiss Russia as a malicious cyber actor. Of course, if the country has some some important capacities and is not shy to at all to express them and to perpetrate cyber attacks, which are really detrimental for many people in the world and for companies, including this smaller one in Europe in particular. Have other countries catch up with Russia or with other cyber powers like the US or China? Yes, of course, and in many ways. For example, if we are talking from a European point of view, which I like to do, countries such as France, the UK, and Germany, for example, have sought for over the past. Over the past 4 years, I'd say 4-5 years, if we're generous, to increase their own capacities. Well, when I say capacities here, it's not only about the number of computers and the sophistications of algorithm and so on. No, it's also about the doctrines. So. All the doctrines in the cyber offense and defense components. It's about human resources. So the way also these particular European countries have sought to educate, to train, to recruit experts in cybersecurity and cyber defense, and something really important. And for example, in the case of France, it's something which is quite clear today, and we're quite well placed to know this matter in Rennes, for example, where cyber defense is taken quite seriously, needless to say, and in the UK, and Germany as well. The issues have been also. I've also gave birth to many state or regional led initiatives. So perhaps in a more fragmented way in Germany than in the UK or France, but overall over the past 5 years, the change is quite noticeable. But well, anyway, here that enters a quite clearly a political dimension. And this is where here the cyber factor is interesting, because when you compare to what it was 5-6 years ago, clearly today it's pretty much politicized, and this is a factor which decision makers, be they engineers or mid-level officials, should take into account when dealing with cyber. And other extra-European countries which have catch up. Well, we are all the time thinking about Israel as being a quite credible and skilled actor in that realm. Yes, it is, of course, and although this myth of Israel being, so sort of omnipresent and really one of the best, or perhaps the best player in that field, has undergone a sort of flaw a few months ago. I forgot here the example, but you had some government institutions which have been hit by cyber attacks. So we didn't know at the time. It was a few months ago. I think in December, if I'm right. We didn't know from where it emanated, from Iran or China or whatever. But the fact that Israel was a country which is not totally protected, totally immune from cyber attacks, was quite interesting and telling about the nature of the threats going on. And apart that, going to Asia, You have countries such as South Korea and Singapore, which has also taken the matter very seriously. And Singapore is interesting case study because here I was really focusing a lot on cybersecurity and cyber defense. But if you take the cognitive components, let's say it this way, disinformation and propaganda and subversion and deception. A country like Singapore has really sought to balance its approach between the cyber and the cognitive aspect. And it's really interesting because when in the West we tend to focus much more on Russia as the key, enemy in that disinformation, landscape. In Singapore, it's about China, and they have things to tell about it. So, well, there are many corporations, by the way, between Singapore and the European Union. In that realm, it's really interesting. And of course, the US, which I have not mentioned, but I think it's clear for all of us that it's the sorry, it's still the global leading power in that field. Although all these cyber attacks mentioned for the past minutes, solar winds and so on, have pretty well shown that this country is not immune from major attacks for different motives, by the way. And this were scandals actually which shed a quite cruel light actually on the imbalance in the US, on the imbalance between the favor put on cyber offense to the detriment of cyber defense in the US domestic context. And it's something which I think has been understood, so I hope for Americans that there should be perhaps more balanced, nuanced view on to and just to finish on that, when you take the example of the European Union, what I think is quite clear over the past few months, and especially again here under the light of the Ukraine conflict, is that the successes of the European approach is in the way not to dismiss the cyber defense, actually the resilience of the infrastructure, and it's something I think which helped the Ukrainians in return, because they really over the past few years they really sought to augment their own cyber resilience, and it's something well, we pretty well understood the results during the first month of the war.
Mhm. Yeah, very interesting, and also interesting from the perspective that this is something that is really happening at the moment. Yeah. Okay, Alex, I hand over
Okay,
to you.
thank you, Macaulay. Thank you, Julian, for this presentation. There are a few audiences questions. And first of them are about the link between groups of hackers and government. So the first question is, to what extent we can link cyber attacks to a government? Are IP addresses enough to say that a cyber attack is managed by a country?
My answer is no, because that would be far too simple. But here my answer is too short, so I'm going to elaborate. No, that would of course be really too simple and not give too much credit to cyber, of course, as a way as a tool for the political and economic leverage. No, here the well, actually, these questions I very quickly mentioned during in the at the beginning of my talk, the issue of attribution, because yes, we it's difficult to be sure of your adversary in cyberspace, of who attacked you. But in the case of cyberspace, of who attacked you. But in the case of the countries which have gathered important intelligence gathering capabilities, and an important technical expertise. Also, by the way, in some cases, it's possible to know who attacked you. The question here is, if I am a state which have been attacked and I have some indications that it's, well, China, for example, let's say, to change of Russia, that is China, is my interest to say publicly, openly, that China attacked my country. It's something which goes far beyond the technology and the techniques, actually, and it's deeply political and deeply diplomatic and tied to the global context, actually. And well, here I think it's an issue on which we are clearly seeing many different approaches so far through this issue of attribution. For example, in the US and the UK, by the way, as well, they have put in place what we call a name and shame policy, meaning that it's especially the case since the second mandate of Barack Obama as president. So from 2014, let's say 2014, 2015, yeah, that the US has really sought to name, to attribute publicly who perpetrated cyber attack, and to tell it really publicly, openly, frankly. The consequences so far for the US have not been so important because it's the US, allegedly can manage an escalation. But when you are a more modest country in terms of cyber capabilities, and a more modest country in terms of cyber capabilities and diplomatic weight, you might hesitate to attribute directly a cyber attack to Russia or to China, because you can really clearly fear an escalation, and more particularly some other attacks against your government or your companies. So it's something which is really risky, but in all the cases, which is always tied to the intelligence capacities your country have. And that's why we always come back to the issues of secrecy, of clandestine operations, and of intelligence gathering. So I'm not going to develop on that. I mean, espionage part, but it's clearly the case today that the link with law enforcement agencies is quite evident in that field. And when it comes to know who attacked you, and to attribute that, the intertraining is really obvious today. That's a very difficult question. It's really difficult because, as I said during my talk, today you have many hacking groups which are at least part-time working for state, for governments. Well, part-time or full-time, by the way. So that's really a tricky question, because this kind of assessment has never been made, and I'm not sure it's easy to make such kind of assessment and to provide you with a definite, answer on that. So I would not risk myself to say that the power of hackers in the world is higher than the collective power of states, together. And I'm not so sure about that, by the way. But the question is really hard to make, because sometimes, once again, you can't distinguish the level of integration of some hackers within state apparatus, within state, intelligence services or armies, armed forces, because it's impossible to distinguish, that. So sometimes the ties are really there, once again, it's really tied to that difficulty to distinguish all these players. But it's something which is also sought in itself by the players in the cyber world, because the difficulty to know precisely who is who, it's something which is useful. Which is useful when you are resorting to cyber operations or to cyber attacks, because it contributes, once again here, to blur the lines. And it's we are in some way we are living in a world in which blurring the lines in the either in the technical field and in the cognitive field is really key, because it enables you to keep the advantage, and to keep the tempo, on your side. Well, many kind of targets, actually. No, I would really say that cyber threats today are agnostic. I mean that whatever the attackers can target and steal or manipulate is really welcome, actually. And if you take the examples from the past, the past 3-4 years, you see that it's not only about stealing state secrets, or about stealing intellectual property to major companies, but it's also about paralyzing the activities of small hospitals in some remote areas, in France, in the UK, Germany, in Italy, and whatever you want. So yeah, I really I would not try to, I would not dare to draw a sort of hierarchy between the targets, because, well, of course it would, in a more military perspective, it would be more useful to target critical infrastructure, such as telecommunications, different structures and energy networks, of course. But in a daily routine basis, I mean, no matter which are the targets, the purpose is, when you are a cybercrime gang, the purpose will be to gain euros or dollars. And so no matter if it's a hospital, a university, or a I don't know, a small bank, the purpose will be to gain money. Well, so here I would not, once again, not make any hierarchy, and once again it also depends from the nature of the attacker. Hmm. That's a €1 million question. I would love to have the answer. No, so thank you to the one who asked that, because it's really interesting, including in terms of scenarios, of prospect and so on. It's really fascinating. I think that in public debate, and including within academia, we tend to focus more on state to state cyber operations, because it's perhaps more easy. It's easier for us, because it's our traditional landmarks, which are based on perception that international relations are based on state relations. But today it's clear that companies, bigger ones and smaller ones, are part of the game. So I would perhaps here, try to answer in the way that companies are the first targets, and they suffer much more from cyber attacks than governments themselves. However, saying that we would have more cyber attacks between companies, I would not be so sure, because we are not here in a world in which we have authorized how to say the constitutions of cyber capacities within companies. And it's something which is very important, by the way. It's something which I have not mentioned before, but you have part of the debate on cyber capacities and companies, which is framed around the notion of hackback. So actually, meaning hackback, meaning that that companies should have within their walls, the capacities to reply to any given cyber risk and cyber threat. This is something which has given birth to many debates and disputes in some way. For example, in France, the hackback is something which is totally forbidden. Because the official line is that if we authorize hackback, that would quickly escalate and put all the things out of control. So no way. In the US, it's more ambiguous. I would not give a definite answer, because the official government position is that hackback is forbidden in the US, but companies, and for some of them, have clearly stockpiled some really important cyber capabilities. I know that a few years ago in Germany, you have lively debates on hackback. Here, perhaps more coming from the influence of major players from the industry, so Siemens, Volkswagen, and so on. And that was really interesting, because all that fierce debates within between the European countries, they also happened within EU institutions, so the Parliament, first of all, and that did not translated into an authorization of hackback. So here I would perhaps be more nuanced, that companies to companies, company to company cyber attacks hopefully are not an important feature. So after things that it depends from what the individual asking the questions understood by company. So if you also refer to a criminal gang, well, that would perhaps change a bit my answer. But if you think about traditional, company to company attacks, well, hopefully, let's be quite, quiet about that. Mm. That's also quite a sensitive issue here. Well, thanks for asking the question, because it's really it's something which I perhaps would tie to an issue that we are starting to call the weaponization of technological interdependencies. And something really interesting, because you all remind from 4 years ago, all the tensions about Huawei, the Chinese company, which was caught in between the US and Chinese tensions, and all that spat around 5G and submarine cables and so on. And here we sometimes have such tech companies being caught into geopolitical struggles. So here you mentioned Palantir or NSO. So not Pegasus, which is the software, but NSO. And just to no matter to openly talk about NSO. There is some, dense, diplomatic activity undertook by NSO to try to shape the perception of researchers and academics working on these matters, and to try to suggest them to write reports on the regulation of cyber weapons. Meaning that it would be interesting to work on that, because it's a major topic today, and it's really really important to work. Well, anyway, I'm saying it with some distance, but it's really really interesting in the way that that these companies working on very sensitive topics at the crossroad between the individual rights of people and and state secrecy and so on. These companies have clearly understood that they are they are caught in important battles, and that they can be easily expelled from different markets. And this this feature is really is pretty much understood when you are Huawei or when you are Kaspersky, for example, today, for example, with the war in Ukraine. This kind of society of companies have experienced another wave of troubles, also because of these tech interdependencies. So that's interesting. And you were mentioning as well Palantir. That's I think my answer would be quite similar to what I said about NSO. This is a company which is trying to be pretty much active within academia of the world, and to try to be part of the debate, and to show that it's part of the solution and of the problem. And here I would clearly not equalize my perception and views about these two companies, Palantir and NSO, with more traditional actors from the infosec or tech platform ecosystem. It's clearly not the same business and not the same stakes. So it is something which has also something which has to be understood quite importantly. And I think that in the broader public debate, people do not have this level of expertise to understand that, and it's a pity, because the impact on privacy, on democracy, even of such companies is really really important and detrimental, of course. So let's educate on that.
Well, so we really have some lag here with the technology today. Sorry really for that. And
Okay.
also some echo, as I hear. Time advanced. Thank you very, very much, Julien.
I was hearing Mac Oliver in the background. So, well, anyway, just to answer you on this question, it's interesting to discuss once again the Snowden affair. 9 years after it erupted on the world scale, and even in conferences and seminars and courses, I and colleagues nearly all the time actually refer to this Snowden disclosures, because the impact was absolutely major. It was major. It was a systemic impact, and here we were not talking about a coalition of people, and not about states and etc., but about the ability, about the influence of one individual to have a major impact on disclosing, the surveillance capabilities of one state for different purposes. But what I think about this affair, I would not say here that it's bad or good. It's not the purpose, I think, but actually, just tying it to geopolitics, I think this was absolutely key, that we don't see all these issues in tech, cyber, surveillance, and their impact on democracy and etc. On the same level, in the same way as we understood that before. And that's achieved, I think, and that man, Edward Snowden, paid that actually, because he's living in a country which is not famous for defending the individual rights. So, well, we have to understand that, and well. Yeah, it's really it's well on the one hand it's key, and on the other hand it's really difficult to answer once again here, because once again, speaking from a European point of view, for the past years we have been talking about sort of European third way, a sort of middle ground between the American and Chinese models. So American model, which is referring to Shoshana Zuboff's work on surveillance capitalism on the one side, and on the other side, the Chinese side, a tech authoritarian model, which is basing its approach on extracting as much personal data so as to feed the huge artificial intelligence systems being put in place by the Chinese government and all the Chinese party state. So how do we, as Europeans, how do we draw the lines between these two different models? Of course, we are much closer here from the American model, but it's far from being perfect. And as we know, the line between how to say the line between digital marketing, for business implications and for propaganda disinformation might be quite thin. And it's something we have understood since the US election in 2016, and also the Cambridge Analytica scandal back in 2018. So that it is something which always get back to me to the huge power, the huge grip actually of the major tech platforms. Not to say that the GAFAM and the big tech are the only bad actors in the room. Not to say that, but I mean, this is something which is there is a sort of gap in terms of power and democratic weight between states and these big tech players, which has to be, I think, rebalanced so as to avoid all the problems we have seen, especially in the US, but partly in Europe as well, in terms of exploitation and feeding all the popular discontent and sowing confusion and etc. Because this is something which is exploited by adversaries like Russia, for example. So there is a major aspect today. So on the political level, as I just said, but also at the people who asked the question, intended, there is also a stake in terms of protecting individual privacy and rights. So as Europeans, once again, we are not. I think today we are not in the bad place to think and to act in this realm. So I would not think in a pessimistic way here. I know that when you associate, European Union and cyber and digital stuff, people are often pessimistic and think, oh, we are lagging behind and so on and so on. But I think this lagging behind rhetoric is detrimental, because actually in Europe many things happen, and in terms of ethics and norms, we are quite good. So yeah, that would be perhaps my final and optimistic view.
Well, very good. Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Because the setting. So Alex is today in Canada, and maybe this was the reason or something else, because I lost Alex. You still heard him. We heard your answers, but we didn't hear the question. So it was quite an interesting situation. But it was super interesting, the discussion as well. And unluckily, the time advanced already, and therefore we have to close the session. But the good thing is, if you have the time, you will also be on the panel after the talk that we had to skip, the last one, which will, as I said, either be in the pre-last week of June or in the middle of July, one of the two. I will also send you an email about it to find a date that is fitting. So yeah, once again, a big thank you. So it was ultra cool, your presentation, and it covered lots of super interesting topics. In the aftermath, I will try to cut the video together in a way that we hopefully have most of the stream, because it was really, I don't know what happened today with the stream. Was a little bit sometimes losing some stuff. Okay, cool. So Julien, thank you very much. A big
thank you so much
from my side again, and the next edition will be on the 15th of June, and we'll have a presentation by Airbus. It will be about 10 years of Airbus cybersecurity. This will also be very exciting. It will be with Nicolas Razi and Nicolas Loriot. And yeah, make sure that you tune in, and if you did not subscribe to the videos yet, do so. Subscribe on the website to get the updates and so on. And for those people watching the stream, I will show you now the announcement sheet of the next talk. The trailer will also put it online shortly. And yeah, with that, for the audience, thank you very much for participating. It was an exciting edition again. Tell your friends about it so that we have even more visitors, viewers in the next editions. And yeah, have a good week, have a good long weekend in case you took a bridge day in Europe. And see you for the next edition on the 15th. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
All right. Oui, c'était super. Donc, c'était parfait. Donc, c'était vraiment dommage qu'on avait un peu le problème avec la connexion, parce que 2-3 fois, ça a coupé. J'ai essayé de recréer le stream. Donc, probablement, je vais être capable de créer un vidéo qui a plus de presque toutes les choses. Voilà. Donc, merci beaucoup. C'était super.
Bon, bah, très bien. Bon, bah, merci encore à toi.
Oui, et on se verra au FIC. Donc, je vais essayer ton tutoriel va être quand?
Moi, j'y serai le 8 et le 9.
Ok. Donc, ça, c'est mercredi, jeudi.
Ouais, mercredi, jeudi, oui. Ouais. Et puis, donc, je donnerai une masterclass le 8, le mercredi 8, je crois que c'est à 11h. Mais voilà.
Ok, cool. Oui, comme ça, on peut se voir. Donc, peut-être on va se croiser parce qu'il y aura beaucoup de monde, comme toujours. Donc,
il y aura beaucoup de monde, mais ça fait du bien de revenir à des événements comme ça, en vrai.
C'était aussi le FIC dernière année, c'est le premier événement pour moi avec beaucoup de grandes audiences. Ouais. Super, merci beaucoup.
Ouais, super. Merci à toi. À très bientôt.
Salut, à très bientôt.
Salut.
Cher CyberCNI, pôle d'excellence région Bretagne. Au revoir et à la prochaine.